The EU has announced an investigation into Chinese electric car makers. Brussels suspects state help from Beijing is giving them an unfair advantage in the market. Speaking during a State of the Union address, here's European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
Global markets are now flooded with cheaper Chinese electric cars. And their price is kept artificially low by huge state subsidies. This is distorting our market. And as we do not accept this distortion from the inside in our market, we do not accept this from the outside.
We can now speak to Gregor Sebastian from the Mercator Institute for China Studies. Thanks a lot for being with us, Gregor. People in Europe might have noticed the arrival of Chinese electric vehicles on the streets here, but what sort of impact are they having on the car market?
They're having an increasingly rapid entry into the European market, and I think that's really going to shake up competition. Last week on the IAA, you could see that many Chinese car makers, the likes of BYD, but also companies like SAIC, are debuting their new models for the European market. And I think this is really a wake-up call that competition is not only heating up in China or third markets, but it's also hitting European car makers at their home turf.
Yeah, because car making is obviously a very big business here in Europe. What sort of support is the EU alleging that Chinese electric car makers have been getting from Beijing?
So the EU is now proposing to investigate the exact distortions that could be impacting the European market. What is quite likely to be found is that Chinese producers or China-based companies, because we shouldn't forget that there's also foreign companies like Tesla or BMW producing in China for the export, including to Europe, that they have benefited from below-market financing. For instance, that they have received loans from Chinese state-owned banks that they wouldn't get on normal market conditions. But it also includes other support factors like free or extremely cheap land, or support when it comes to innovation activities. And finally, China has taken protective measures to also shield its own battery companies like CATL or BYD that are highly impactful in the EV sector from foreign competition. And all that is going to be investigated in due course by the EU Commission.
And it's obviously helpful for Chinese car makers that they can sell their cars for cheaper than Europeans. But isn't there an argument that China has just done a better job of nurturing its electric car sector? Because it seems to be just a step ahead of Europe's car makers on this.
I think it's definitely a bit of both. You're completely right. Chinese car makers are extremely innovative, and I think they've also really hit the nail on the head when it comes to finding and then targeting the taste of consumers in China especially. I think what European car makers have for some time neglected is to really tailor the car to the local taste, right? You don't necessarily need a car that is super powerful. What Chinese consumers are looking for are these digital features and also cheaper prices than European companies are often offering. And increasingly, I think Chinese companies like BYD are confident that they can not only hit the consumer tastes in their home market, but they will also find success in overseas markets, including in Europe.
Yes, of course, it's not just Chinese car makers trying to take a piece of the European market, but vice versa as well, isn't it? But this investigation, it could take a bit of time. In the meantime, are European governments already acting against Chinese electric car imports?
Yes, there have been some recent developments. The first thing that's happening on the EU level, which is also part of the European wider strategy to de-risk from China, is to look into the raw material supply chain. So there is an effort to kind of reduce the reliance on raw materials coming from China. Additionally, individual member states, for instance, France, are currently looking into changing their purchasing EV subsidy regime. So currently, if you're a consumer in Europe and you want to buy an EV, most governments are going to give you a little bit of help, a little bit of a subsidy to make that purchase more attractive. And in France, 40% of those subsidies in the first quarter of this year went to cars that were made in China. And Macron, the French president, has already announced that they are looking into this, and by year end, they want to tailor these purchasing subsidies so that Chinese cars will not benefit as much as they currently do.
OK, well, we'll see how it develops, won't we? Gregor Sebastian from the Mercator Institute for China Studies, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much.